Genesis taught us about our world, our origin as a people, and it sets a stage to this salvation plan. Human rebellion began with Adam and Eve. Both having free will, they were given a choice. Instead of submitting to God's will, they chose to listen to the deceiver, and they disobeyed God's will for them. So that began this introduction of sin, which caused separation between man and God. God wants to rekindle that relationship. So God provides us with a salvation plan in Genesis 3:15. It's the first good news that someone is coming to deal with the sin problem, or the snake, or the deceiver, or Satan, whatever you want to call it. Someone is coming. How is that going to happen? We read in Genesis 12, God makes a promise to Abraham. One day a nation will come from him, and that nation will bring that someone, this promised Messiah, that will deal with the sin problem. So we've been tracking this genealogy of Abraham's descendants, and they're called the Israelites, now grouped as 12 tribes, and they've multiplied massively, which brings us to the book of Exodus. The Israelites exiting Egypt. The Israelites were enslaved in Egypt, but God freed them from bondage and is going to bring them into the nation promised to them. That is displaying God's faithfulness and greatness as the one true God. So that covenant that God made with Abraham is renewed with the Israelites. So as a group and as a nation, they enter a covenant, or this contract, if you will, with God. And that is where we get these 10 commandments and these various case laws. Exodus ends with the building of the tabernacle. This is the place where God will dwell, which brings us to the book of Leviticus. So the Israelites learn how to worship in their new tabernacle. Here's how to be holy to God. These laws or practices are going to set them apart from surrounding nations. So they're off to the races. They're headed to the promised land in the book of Numbers, but immediately they begin to complain. This first generation of Israelites lacked faith in God and rebelled by choosing not to enter the promised land. This book of Numbers recounts their history of wandering around in the desert, complaining and dying out in various ways. Which brings us to the book of Deuteronomy. It's a recap, it's a history lesson to the second generation Israelites. It's Moses speaking. Your ancestors chose not to enter into the land of promise. Moses reminding the people of what God has done. The Lord took you out of bondage in Egypt. The Lord has watched over your journey through the wilderness. For 40 years you have lacked nothing. God fed you with manna, and your clothes did not wear out. So, if you are doubting God, think of all that He has done. Has any other God done this before for His people? Surely not the gods of Egypt. So Moses is reminding the people that it is this God, Yahweh, who is giving them power. So keep his teachings and he will bless them with life and prosperity. That's Deuteronomy chapter 28. It spells out a very simple path. If Israel is faithful, then they will be blessed. If they choose to rebel, their consequence is the opposite. And so since the beginning of time, clearly in the book of Genesis, we have always been given a choice. You get to choose. That's what Deuteronomy is teaching them. And ultimately, that is what Jesus is teaching us. Choose life. The great news is this Old Testament that we're currently reading is very conditional. If you notice, I said, if you do this, then you get this. Today in the New Testament, we no longer have to do. All we must do is believe. So there's really no more stipulations when it comes to the if and then. It's now when. When you choose to give your life to Jesus, he will bless you. Now, Joshua is just reminding the people to be faithful to the Lord. Know the word. Remember, we talked about Shema. Hear the word that you may learn the word, that you may put it into practice. The word. Love the Lord. Be loyal to the Lord, because if you aren't, you will be influenced by the surrounding cultures, because as we've just read, they didn't get rid of all the Canaanites. I'm going to have you highlight this verse, Joshua chapter 24, verse 15. Make sound choices on who you will serve. So I'll read the verse. If choosing the Lord is undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Again, reminding the people they have a choice. Choose life. Do you want to serve these traditional polytheistic gods of Canaan, or the one true God, Yahweh? So it also reads at the end of the book, Joshua, servant of the Lord, which is a title I hope I get one day. But Joshua, servant of the Lord, dies at the age of 110 years old.